Hopefully they'll join us, but we will go ahead and get started because
Okay.
you're here and I'm here and that's all we need. Our- Welcome to the Module 4 live session for the Ethics on the Globe course. This meeting is being recorded. Our topics this week are Confucian ethics and African ethics. So let's get started. This is a picture of Confucius. He lived from 551 to 479 BC. So he actually lived at the same time as Socrates. Socrates was in ancient Greece. Confucius was in China. Confucius lived in the ancient state of Lu, which is just below Beijing. So Confucianism originated in China, and then over the years it spread to Korea and Japan. Let's talk about some of the central concepts in Confucian theory. One is metaphysics, ontology, and cosmology. Once you start talking about cosmology, that's when philosophers try to figure out what the order of the universe is, looking beyond Earth into what other heavenly bodies might be out there. And of course, it's known today, at least scientifically, that Earth is a part of the solar system. We revolve around the sun does not revolve around Earth, and that there are, 10 other planets at least in our solar system and many other moons that also revolve around the sun. So for Confucius, he realized that what's out there is the Tao, the ultimate, the one, the absolute, the underlying power and the source. The yin and the yang is a dual expression of the Tao. Neither is superior to the other. He defined the plural world as the universe, heaven and earth, and an ever-changing expression of the yin and the yang. Have you ever seen that symbol used before, Charisse?
I have, yes.
Yeah, I remember it from martial arts when I studied karate. Yeah, it's a Chinese symbol. It simply represents the balance of everything in the universe and the opposite characteristics that balance everything out: female, male, dark, bright, cool, hot, moist, dry, passive, active, negative, positive, evil, good. And the difference between the Chinese conception of the yin and yang and the other classic philosophical dualisms, certainly in the Western world, it seems like dualisms are forever in conflict, the individual versus society, and it's like a conflict. The yin and the yang, though, act in harmony, and both are considered to be necessary to maintaining the order of the universe. And I think about it again in karate, it's all about maintaining your balance, and the yin and the yang is sort of about, having all of these different attributes in balance, these different virtues, having them in balance. So for Confucius, the primary goal is order, harmony, peace, and happiness here on earth in this life. Some of the other things he talked about, one is the aesthetics, which is a philosophy of art, looking at the moral and political purposes of art. If you've ever seen any TV shows on PBS, looking at ancient art, art was often historically it was tied to religious symbols. It was tied to certain historical periods and movement. The art reflected the pop culture of the time. So for Confucius, there is a value in aesthetics in studying art to understand culture. This course is about moral philosophy, which Confucius also studied, ethics. Confucius also studied social and political philosophy and developed his theory of the government, which basically says that we have a need for morally and intellectually virtuous rulers and civil servants. So, you have a module 4 media assignment, which allows you to be creative. And in this media assignment, you're going to think of a way to present the Confucian ethical theories. One of them is the Chun Tzu, The Chun Tzu is the superior, self-actualized, virtuous, and perfected person who exemplifies the ideal blend of all virtues, Yi, Ren, Li, and Sao. Yi is righteousness, just, and appropriate conduct. According to Confucius, there is an objective, absolute, and unconditional moral obligation on all of us to work for universal human well-being. Who does that sound like, Charisse, that we've already studied? Does that sound like another ethical theory?
That sounds like which one was the one last week? Okay, there's an absolute, objective, absolute, and unconditional moral obligation. I want to say Kantian.
You're exactly right. That is Kantian ethics. Kant's deontological ethics is all about us following universal, objective moral rules and obeying our human duties. The duty being the categorical imperative, which is to do that which follow universal moral rules regardless of wants and needs. And that is exactly what Confucius says. Confucius says the same thing. The Chinese word for it is yi. There is an absolute, objective, and unconditional moral obligation on all of us to work for the universal human well-being, common good, and the general welfare. The second Confucian ethical virtue is Ren, and Ren should be the focus of your Module 4 assignment. Ren is a positive formulation and cultivation of feeling, respect, empathy, compassion, and love for all humanity. It is represented when someone gives their clothes, takes the clothes off their back for someone who may be homeless, who gives shoes to someone who may not have shoes. Ren would be shown by a firefighter who rushes into a burning building to save a child. That's sort of a love and respect and a care and concern for all humanity. It would be rushing into a hurricane and saving victims who are drowning. It is not a romantic love. It is a feeling of compassion and empathy for all of humanity. Li, in Confucian ethics, Li is the proper conduct. And the proper conduct for Confucius is always in relation to the relationship. So you're looking at the relationship and what the proper conduct would be between parent and child, husband and wife, elder sibling, younger sibling, elder friend, younger friend, ruler, subject. Do you have any older or younger siblings, Charisse?
I do have two younger sisters and two younger brothers.
Okay, so they all look up to you, right?
They do.
And
They do think I know everything and I know how to solve all of their issues. And I pretend that I do.
that's fabulous. That's what Confucius wants. Within the family relationship, he wants respect and reverence for elder siblings, for elder relatives, for grandparents, for parents. He wants that respect, and that's the proper conduct. And I have two older brothers, it's the same way. I always looked up to them, to show me the way, that was the model of behavior, that was the way to do it, things, the way that they did things.
Yeah.
Looking up to that, to that elder sibling. Notice Confucian also has the doctrine of the mean. Who else did we talk about who had a doctrine of the mean or a middle way?
That was Aristotle.
You're exactly right. Yes, for Aristotle, it was the golden mean. For Buddhists, it was the middle way. For Confucian, it's the doctrine of the mean. Again, that proper conduct is a midpoint between behavioral extremes. Last but not least, The last Confucian ethical value that we're going to look at is Sao, or filial piety, and that is having devotion to and reverence for parents and families. And according to Confucius, in 500 BC, the institution of the family was the foundation of a well-ordered and civilized society, grounded mainly on respect of children for parents. Now, do we still have that today, Charisse? Do we still have filial piety in our modern society?
No,
You're right. If you
not
look
at
at
all.
if you looked at Dr. Phil, you've got kids on there that are telling their parents off. They're not obeying their parents. They're not obeying their teachers. You know, um, there is a loss of that respect of
I
children for
agree.
parents.
And we need to get, and I don't think we will, but we definitely need to get that back.
Yes, it would take a lot of redirecting our efforts to morality, you know. People would have to start really investing more time in raising their kids, teaching them right from wrong, nurturing. All of that stuff has to be done. And today, when you've got, both parents are working and both parents are busy, and, a lot of times kids are being raised by their friends or they're being raised by social media or video games. They're not going to come out having respect for parents because they haven't spent any of their key time with parents or grandparents. I speak to some of my friends, and they grew up and spent all of this amazing time with their grandparents, and naturally when you have grown close to people like that and you were young and you grew up with wonderful grandparents who were involved in your life, teaching you things, showing you how to do things, nurturing you, there will be respect for those people. But when you have not grown up like that,
Hmm.
there's
I think most of the times there's resentment um, of the parents because, as you said, sometimes they're just busy. It's like they don't want to, but they're very busy. So there's that resentment. And of course, whether it's resentment or not, it's just, it didn't happen. And so we have that loss of that connection. It's kind of like if a fruit fell off the tree too soon, it didn't get all that nurturing that it needed. So,
that's a wonderful analogy, and that might even be a metaphor. That is very metaphorical. No, you're absolutely right. You have, you know, and when we talked about in module 1, is it important to study ethics? How old should we be when we learn ethics? Who teaches ethics? People had different ideas, but clearly there needs to be ethics taught at a very young age, or else the children will grow up and they won't have respect for parents or anybody else for that matter.
mhm.
Yeah, so it's like the tree. Yeah, it's like an apple falling off of a tree before it is fully ripe, fully developed, and it's a problem. Respect for age. I mean, everything I see on TV is respect for youth, right? How to look younger, how to
Mhm.
act younger, how to have younger skin. It's not about how to have older skin. No.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about aesthetics. For Confucius, there is a value in learning in the arts, and that's known as Wen. The importance of culture and the creation and maintenance of a well-ordered society, studying and learning the arts, especially music. I know I personally had an amazing eighth grade art teacher who made us learn 200 classical and historical paintings by the title, the artist, the date, and country. We would just sit there in art class and we would go over those 200 paintings every day until everybody had them memorized. So because of that, yeah, I have an amazing appreciation now for art, especially art from the Impressionist period, the 1800s. That was just very, very influential on future generations. So, and I understand also because of that class, the connection between art and culture and how the art was reflecting and demonstrating certain things that were happening in the culture. Historically, music was very ceremonial. Tribes used it to commemorate certain events, certain ceremonies. Of course, there's a wedding song. There's music that's played at baby showers and baby christenings. And there's certain music is played during war and graduation. So historically, music was either religious or ceremonial. All of that changed during the classical period of music, which is really in um, the late 1700s when music became much more expressive and people started breaking out of traditional molds and being more. Beethoven really was the first to be, and Mozart some, to really make music a more emotive and more expressive rather than just ceremonial, because historically music was, to be played at a certain ceremony, and it again it was identified with a certain culture and a certain tradition. So that's why Confucius feels like there is an aesthetic value in studying music in the arts. So what do you think today's music says about society, Cerise?
Oh my gosh. Absolutely nothing good. Let's call it that. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, here and there you'll find one or two that might be an expression of what's taking place or of something significant, but most of the times, um, it's not genuine and you can feel it. If you really listen and pay attention to what's happening in the music, in the song, you can feel that it's more of an opportunity, or an opportunity to make some money off of a situation rather than to really express. So it's very ingenuine, um, on that side, and then of course the rest is just trash, in my opinion.
No, I think that's a very valid opinion. And um, I've recently been listening to this artist, Alicia Keys, who has won all these Grammy Awards. And, she's been out for about 20 years, but I've recently, opened my mind up to her music. And I recently read her book and realized that, she actually does have something to say. And she's trying to communicate it in a positive, manner. And she's trying to speak about her experience, as a young woman growing up in the Bronx, being biracial and growing up with a single mom who was working all the time, and her own experiences. So I have started to appreciate Alicia Keys, and the value of her work. Of course, she's a classically trained pianist
Yes.
who attended a school for performing arts in New York, and she's obviously very gifted. But I do see some aesthetic value in her music, now that I've started giving it a chance.
Hmm.
Have you ever
Yeah.
listened to her stuff?
Oh, I love her stuff. I like what I like about her and about Lauryn Hill is they're never really trying to sound the prettiest. So it's genuinely how they feel when they're singing the song. They'll have like rough patches here and there. And I don't know why, but I like that. I do
Yes.
love her.
Yes. Yeah, I've had some people mention Lauryn Hill to me too, and I've watched some of her videos, and she definitely is expressing, her own experiences, what she has experienced, as a single woman or as a single mother, what it is that she's going through. And you can learn something,
Yeah.
about that lifestyle and about her culture through the music. So there
Yes.
remains some music, which is still an artistic expression and connected to the culture in some positive way. just not
Mm-hmm.
just not all of it, because like you said, so much of it, has just been made to is corporatized and monetized.
Yes.
It's just about making money, and Jay-Z's a billionaire, and Kanye is a millionaire.
Mhm.
Rihanna is about to become a billionaire.
I know. And I love Rihanna, but yeah, the music, it's really just for entertainment, nothing more. Another good one that you might want to listen to, I haven't listened to in a while though, is an artist named Mos Def, Mosef,
Okay.
like Frank. He's
Okay.
really great. He's right there with the Alicia Keys and the Lauryn Hill as far as content
I will check that
creators.
out.
Yeah. I
Thank
love
you.
music. I grew up on
Yes.
music. I remember at like 3 years old, my aunt used to drag me to shows, but it was mostly Rastafarian artists. So there was a message, and she would teach me how to play the turntable, and there were the speaker boxes. So at that young age, I thought the artists were in the speaker boxes. So I used to try to open it because I wanted to be in there to sing with them. But yeah, I love art. So
That is great. That's awesome.
mhm.
Okay, so that is those are the virtues that you should be discussing in that module 4 assignment. Confucius also spent some time contemplating political philosophy. For him, it was tea, which is the union of power and virtue. He was focused on the characteristics of a moral civil servant, which I don't think some people think that actually exists. But a good ruler, politician, member of Congress would need to have moral goodness, virtue, and propriety. Now, how does the media portray politicians? What do you see about politicians in social media?
Hmm. Um, let's see. To be basic, what I see is who is best at making promises. And then also, uh, the media does its best to dig up all of their dirt to show that they have no moral goodness at all. And they usually do a good job of showing that. So yeah.
Yes, that seems to be the thing now, is to, because Confucius says a good ruler or civil servant has moral goodness. So during an election, the opponent is going to try to go and dig up as much dirt on his or her competing opponent, the other candidate for that position, right? And then the media is going to try to dig up some more for ratings. So it's all become a game about who lacks moral goodness. And we've heard sexual assault allegations. We've heard failure to pay taxes, right? Supposedly, Trump paid $270 in taxes in 2016, and Hillary Clinton paid $3 million in taxes that year. And again, it's a question of has someone committed a crime? Embezzlement. We've heard about all kind of very, very bad behavior, accusations flying. We've heard about people, an email scandal, right, involving a politician who didn't save all of her emails on an encrypted system. Instead she used like Hotmail to save some of the government's national security emails. And so, yeah, all of this is supposed to show that one candidate does not have moral goodness, rationality, moderation, right, or benevolence. We've seen in social media candidates being portrayed as evil, right? Is just is heartless, is cold, not caring about the coronavirus, not caring about the masks, right? Not caring about the vaccine.
The kids in cages.
Mm, that's an excellent example. And as far as I understand it, the kids in cages, was definitely not something that Donald Trump started doing. That has been going on, I would say, for at least 10 years before his presidency. It's part of the immigration policy at the border. In my opinion, it is not directly related to Trump, but all the photographs came out during his presidency, and he did not make it any better by separating, women and children. But certainly he was blamed for all of that. And, he was, and the whole concept of doing that was put on trial in the media, right? And
Yeah, I did hear someone explain the same thing. Just a couple of days online, someone was saying the same thing. So yes, I do understand. It's an immigration policy.
yeah, I mean, ultimately the president is responsible as the chief in command of the immigration policy, but it's not like he or she shares that responsibility alone, and it doesn't absolve the president of it either. But it certainly was something that was occurring under Obama and Bush. But again, because the media chooses which people to, show the dirt on, they went ahead and chose to show it on Trump, and they chose not to show that bad stuff when Obama was in president, because the media was certain aspects of the media, certain stations were more for Obama, so they were watching their etiquette and making sure that we as the public did not see children in cages during his administration. But once Trump got in, another group of people said, let's just show all the dirt that we can. So, yeah, it's problematic.
It's strategic, yeah. And I did feel scared to say this week when I was having a conversation with someone that I felt that Trump was not treated fairly. I'm not saying he was great, but he wasn't treated fairly. And I'm glad this came up. So yeah, this is one of the instances that makes me draw that conclusion.
Oh yeah. The media can choose to certain stations can, and that's the thing, people choose to watch certain stations. You got certain people that watch Fox, certain people that watch CNN, and other people watch NBC, because they want the news told from a certain perspective. And if you change channels, you're going to hear a totally different story. People, just like Trump, the entire time Obama was in office, Trump was saying, where is your birth certificate? He wasn't born here. He was born in Kenya, and that was a lie. Obama was born in Hawaii. His mother's from Kansas. He was born an American citizen. Obama is an American citizen, but for 8 years, Trump said that he wasn't an American citizen. So yeah, that came back to bite him later.
So an off question, really, really quickly. So you have to be born an American citizen, not naturalized. Is that what it is?
Yes, I believe you have to be a born citizen to be president of the United States. And Obama he was born to a Kansas resident. She was living in Hawaii. Yeah, but his mother was a US citizen, and he was born on US soil. So Obama is a US citizen. But during his presidency, Trump in the media said that he was a Kenyan and demanded to see his birth certificate for 8 years. He was bullying him. And then, of course, once Obama was out and Trump was the president, then he got bullied.
Right. So the karma.
Yeah.
It's been a crazy presidency for a while now. Hopefully this one changes things. If not, next time.
Yeah, I have to admit that I don't hear that much bullying being directed to Joe Biden. Not nearly as much bullying as was directed to Trump and Obama, because they were both bullied. But I haven't seen a lot of bullying on Joe Biden, and I think part of it is there's not a lot there to bully. It would be that he doesn't really have a lot of skeletons in his closet. I've heard some people harass him about his son who did some business dealings in Russia, but I don't feel like there's not much there to bully Joe Biden about, except for some people say he's sleepy, sleepy Joe, like he's tired. But there's not a lot there. So maybe it will be better in that respect. But of course, the media has found other people to talk about. So.
Yes. So he's the only one so far in the past few years that has come close, as far as we know, to the T. Is that how you say it, the T?
Yes, the union of power and virtue.
So that's good. We're getting there.
Okay, so let's move on, Charisse, to our second topic this week, which is African ethics, which is absolutely fascinating. What's so interesting about African ethics is everything has been handed down through a series of oral traditions, whereas Aristotle's ethics is all in writing. African ethics is all a series of oral traditions and stories that have been passed down and different tribal practices. What do you think about when you think about Africa as a continent? What do you think about when you hear the word Africa?
I think about um very proud people. I've always said, and it sounds really bad, but I've always said that all the Africans that I know, they're very, very well educated and very intelligent. And that's something that I like about in people. Someone told me there's a name for it, but yeah, I love people who are super intelligent, and that's the one thing I know about Africans. As far as the continent itself, um, I don't really know. I've heard stories that it's very rich in most of the areas, but then just like anywhere else, there are some real impoverished places. But I've grown up to people calling it the motherland, so I always think that it's a place where you could gain or learn a lot. So that's what I think.
Okay, yes. Africa has been in the news, more recently. Nigeria is an oil-rich country, and recently we know the price of gas is going way up. Nigeria is one of the major suppliers of oil, so there's a lot of wealth in certain parts of Nigeria. Whether there still remains poverty because it's not necessarily being evenly distributed, and we'll talk more about that next week, about distributive justice, economic distributive justice. So I think that remains a problem in Africa. Of course, we hear about the more impoverished parts of Africa, like Ethiopia, where there's people starving, and you see humanitarians like Bill Gates and Melinda Gates going over there, Oprah as well, building schools, building sanitation, building clean water, building safe housing. You read about Doctors Without Borders providing health care to certain communities in Africa. And then, of course, South Africa is a very modern and developed place, and North Africa also, Cape Town, is somewhat of a wealthy commercial area. But certain parts in Central Africa, there's certainly an issue with poverty and survival is a challenge. So I think that comes into play in the African ethics, because for the African ethics, it's a focus on the good life. While Africans may explain morality in terms of self-realization or personal well-being, they also explain the moral life in terms of the impact of personal actions on the community. So while one is focused on the duties to self, the other focuses on duties to the community, because survival is at issue. There is a taint of relativism in basing moral standards on what a community prescribes or approves, but yet Africans do not equate the moral life with their way of life. Unlike relativists, we talked about in Module 1, who base right or wrong on what societies, cultures, or communities approve, instead, Africans do not have the premise that something is right just because it's done by their group. Africans simply live as if they believe that they're living the right way, doing things their way. Good character is central to African ethics in the same way that it was for Aristotle. Society should impart moral knowledge to the members, making them aware of the moral values and principles of that society. Again, character is acquired. A person is responsible for the state of his or her character because the character results from the habitual actions of a person. So if someone wants to be generous, give. And then that's how you'll know if somebody's generous or not. Are they giving or are they taking? So again, for African ethics, that good character is something that is acquired through habit. Humanism is a central theme in African ethics. The doctrine that takes the human welfare, interests, and needs of the tribe is fundamental. It's the foundation of African ethics. The right conduct is relative to the human situation. Morality is oriented not from any absolute standards of honesty or truth, but from the social good. Conduct that promotes smooth relationships and upholds social structure is good. Conduct that runs counter to smooth social relationships is bad. So getting back to the tribes, the greatest happiness and the good of the tribe was the aim, the end, and the aim of each member of the tribe. Utility may form the basis of all moral codes, but with the Bantu tribe in Africa, it formed the basis of morality, utilitarianism, and altruism, which is a standard of goodness and harmony with and conformity to this end, must all moral conduct be molded, again, with a concern for humanism and the human condition. Brotherhood, humanity and brotherhood feature prominently in African social moral thought and practice. They are among the moral and human values that constitute the basic, perhaps the ultimate criteria that not only motivate but justify human actions that affect other human beings. So we have a list of rules here from the Akan tribe in Africa. One is that humanity has no boundary. A human being's brother is another human being. Do you feel like that is a sentiment that really exists in society? Do you feel like when you see another human being, do you feel, oh, he's my brother, you know? Do you feel a brotherhood toward your fellow human being?
Um, I feel like it's waning. Is that the right word?
Mm-hmm.
So I do have that deeply inside, but then I'll say, oh no, that person might be racist, or no, that person might be a killer. So, it's fading.
Yes, waning is the exact word. You know, waning. I always think about the different phases of the moon as it goes from full moon to a smaller crescent and then boop disappears. So waning is a perfect word. Here's an example. I was born in the 70s, and when I was born, my mom's neighbors made blankets, handmade blankets, brought them over for the new baby. Somebody made me a Raggedy Ann doll out of, their own materials, their own cloth. They sewed it by hand, brought it over. these are just neighbors, these, I don't know who these people
Mhm.
are. I mean, my parents may have known them casually, but people in our neighborhood were, oh, a new baby's been born. They made things by hand and ran over and gave them to my parents.
Mhm.
Again, that's some sense of compassion, a recognition of humanity, and I've also seen that in when we moved to a new house. Um, Once when I was a child, this was again in the 70s, neighbors came over with cookies. Somebody
Wow.
else came over with Pepperidge Farm, and someone else came over with some other little gift, just like a housewarming present.
Mhm.
I'm telling you, if I get new neighbors, I'm not running over these days with no housewarming gift.
Mhm. Yeah, when I just bought a house 2 years ago, and I thought, okay, my neighbors are gonna bring me some stuff. Nope, they don't even talk to me, barely speak with me. But when you're driving down the street and you see a mother with like 3 or 4 kids, I always kind of tap on the brake to say, let me offer a ride. But then I know that one, they're not gonna take it because nobody thinks that way anymore. And two, I might be taking a risk. So I just keep going. So yeah, it's really that whole humanity brotherly thing, it's going away.
It really is. It absolutely is. I lived in Colorado for a while, and that is a place where, 15 or 20 years ago, there still was a sense of humanity and brotherhood, especially during the snowstorms. I remember my car getting stuck once in the snow, and a stranger came over and helped literally just throw my car out of a ditch. He was that strong. And sometimes during the snowstorm, which I guess is just an event that brings people together because you can't go anywhere, you know. And in those situations when people are forced together, you see more humanity and more compassion. But yet, ordinarily, mm-mm.
Mhm.
As far as pulling over some strangers, no way. I mean, if you've ever watched that TV show, um, Forensic Files and the other criminal reenactments, you see
Yeah.
these young girls picking up people and becoming the victim of terrible crimes. And, by the time I was 5 years old, my dad had already put, do not ever pick up strangers. Do not ever get in a car with strangers. Do not ever hitchhike. We were taught that like at a young age. So I would never even consider picking up a stranger, hitchhiking. No. If for me, and a different people may have a different morality and may choose to get involved when they see a situation on the street. I always look straight ahead. I do not get involved in any of that, because why should I put myself in harm's way and give myself an extra headache when I'm not involved?
Yes, that is true.
But some people will get involved, and that's not my cup of tea. But I do know people who will actually get involved, and thank goodness for those people who are willing to do that. Um, Hope they're all very strong, big, and tall men. Oh, so let's get back to these Aiken maxims, Cherise. So, getting back to this idea of brotherhood being central in African ethics, humanity, and brotherhood. Um, the human being is more beautiful than gold. It is the human being that counts. If I call upon cloth, it answers not. If I call upon a gold watch, it answers not. But the human being, might actually answer you. So I think that's a commentary about materialism, because certainly in America, in African society, you don't see a lot of materialism, do you?
No.
People bragging
Mm,
about gold watches and Gucci and Fendi purses and Louis Vuitton and all that.
right. No. Yeah, and that's pretty sad. Um, yeah, nowadays if you don't have the best, you might as well stay home. You will be shamed. And that's worse for the children because, as an adult, you can say, whatever, you go ahead and get your expensive scarf. But the children in the schools, I wonder all the time how they survive because they probably don't want to go to school. And I always say they should bring back uniforms, but that's a whole other story.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I think when my mom was in school, they wore uniforms. And there are definitely schools out here in Nevada. I've seen the kids in the grocery store, they all got their little uniform on. And then there's no competition. There's no
Mhm.
issue of who has more money for the expensive handbags. You just wear your uniform and focus on the books. So yeah, uniforms have been brought back in certain school districts here in Nevada, big time.
Sure.
Okay, so common good. Common good features manifestly in African ethics. Common good is essentially what is good for human beings, embracing the needs that are basic to the enjoyment and fulfillment of the life of each individual. If the common good is achieved, then the individual good is also achieved. And then there's the belief that there's no human being who does not desire peace, security, freedom, dignity, respect, justice, equality, and satisfaction. We saw that last week with Buddhism and the speakings and the teachings of the Dalai Lama. Do you believe that there is no human being who does not desire peace, security, freedom, dignity, respect, justice, equality, and satisfaction?
I said yes last week and I stand by it. I really think so. I know that it doesn't come across that way sometimes. Um, but I think that even if some and this sounds crazy, but even if someone does bad things, really in the end what they're looking for is what makes them happy and feel at peace. So it's not always a good, beautiful thing, but that's what everyone wants, I think.
Absolutely. Yes, and that is consistent with Buddhism, and it's also consistent with African ethics. And again, it opens the door to global ethics because it's saying, look, every human being not only desires, but deserves freedom, dignity, respect, justice, equality, and satisfaction. And some of these ideas are embodied, at least for America, in our founding documents, the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution guarantees freedom, justice, equality, a certain amount of security, with a belief that those are inalienable rights that all human beings have, and that at least in the United States, we will be recognizing the freedom. We will be recognizing equality. We will be recognizing justice. And of course, other countries do not have a constitution that guarantees to protect those freedoms. But global ethics is trying to open up the door and say, look, every human being desires, wants, and deserves peace, security, freedom, dignity, respect, justice, equality, and satisfaction, and that they're free to migrate to a place where they can enjoy that, right? That's why people are moving from from war-torn countries to safer countries in Europe. People are coming up from South America, trying to get into America from the Mexican border. It's because they desire peace, security, freedom, dignity, respect, justice, equality, and satisfaction, and that they're not able to get that in the country maybe where they were born or the country where they live now, and they want to immigrate. They want to move somewhere where they can get it. And so, again, it becomes a moral justification for immigration as well, allowing people to pursue that peace, security, freedom, dignity, respect, justice, equality, and satisfaction, which should not be limited based on, the geographic location of where you were born, but rather saying that all human beings, are entitled to this kind of respect, according to African ethics and Buddhism. Any other thoughts about that, Charisse?
When I think that way, my friends say I'm an idealist. That it's fairy tale-ish. But I certainly definitely still wish that that would be universal, you know.
Absolutely. And the way to get there, all change starts with the mind, believing in it, and then you manifest it. Um, So for those people who don't believe in it, they're not going to manifest it. But for those of us who do believe in it, we certainly have a better chance of manifesting it. And if we can't manifest it for everybody else, Sharice, at least we can manifest it for ourselves. Again, starting with that belief that I want peace. So, and I want respect. I want dignity, and I want to have some basic freedom. So if I believe in it, at least I can manifest that for myself. Maybe I can't save everybody else who doesn't want to have those ideas, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, good, good. Yeah, it's the idea that comes first, right? We decide to go to college and then we make it happen, right? Some people don't believe they can go to college. The majority of Americans do not have a college degree, right?
Yeah, but I've
So
been spreading the word of how good it is and how much the beautiful thing about it is you think you know everything you need to know until you get to college and you're like, wait a minute, there's more. There's so much more. So I encourage people all the time.
good, good. Yeah, there's a Greek word for it. It's called a scotoma. It's just a blind spot. And until you recognize until you come to college and somebody said the purpose of college is to replace an empty mind with an open mind, when you recognize what it is that you don't know and everything that's actually out there. Because if you just sit around with your friends all the time and do what they do, you're never going to find out what's possible, and you're
Hmm.
never going to even pursue it, because the first thing that has to happen is for you to have the idea that you can achieve it, that you can pursue it, that you can obtain it. It's that visualization, of seeing yourself in college, enrolling, being successful. And most people can't get to that point, right? They can't even get to the point to apply. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, it's not that you're an idealist, it's that you have goals.
Yeah.
You want
But
something better.
and I'm not really easily swayed. If I want something, I feel like, okay, that means I deserve it and I'm going to get it. So I'm okay.
Good, good.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at our module 4 assignment. It's a fun assignment, Cherise. Gives you the chance to be creative. You have to demonstrate your understanding of Ren, which is the Confucian ethical value of compassion, and other key concepts from Confucian ethics by choosing one of the following options. So you can write a poem that is at least 1 page long about Confucian ethics and Ren. You could write your own song about Ren. It should not be a song that Taylor Swift wrote. It should be your own song. The student writes his or her own song about Ren. You can write a script, a movie script, a movie poster, a commercial about Ren. A lot of students opt to create a PowerPoint presentation with a discussion of the Confucian ethical values in Ren, and then photographs of people engaged in Ren, showing compassion and humanity, love for others. So that's a popular choice, is the PowerPoint presentation. You can create a movie poster, a travel brochure. It should not be about a travel brochure about a lake in Minnesota. It's a travel brochure about Confucian ethics. And this assignment is due Sunday, June 6th. It would be helpful again to make it eye-catching with photographs and clip arts. And if you're going to write the poem, make sure that it is at least 1 page long. An essay is not what we're looking for. We're looking for a media assignment. So it should not be an essay. It should be a poem or a presentation, a movie poster, a song, something, creative media that demonstrates the Confucian ethical values. Any questions about that, Charisse?
No questions. I think it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I've really heard some cool songs and I've seen some amazing presentations. The
So how do you,
presentation. Mhm.
so I was going
Go
to
ahead.
say, how do you differentiate between the poem and the song? Original tone of party.
The poem would just be like typing down words in a Microsoft Word document. Some
Mhm.
people are some students are actually really good at rhymes and something known as iambic pentameter, which is what Shakespeare used when he wrote his poems. It's a certain
Mhm.
rhythm and rhyme to your poetry. So there's I'm sure there's websites about how to write a poem. So you can, write a poem that's creative and if you really want to get fancy using, iambic pentameter or a lot of rhymes and alliteration and metaphors and things like that. I mean, I've seen some students really just knock this assignment just out of the ballpark with the creativity and just amazing skills.
Okay.
Um, but if you wanted a song, then you would, record like an MP3 document or an MP4. You would be
Uh,
singing or somebody rapped. They did a rap song over a beat.
oh, okay. So we can go that far. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm leaning toward poem, but maybe I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, these days with a computer or any type of keyboard, I got $100 keyboard and boy, it can do all kind of songs and beats and just a Casio keyboard. You could, create your own album with it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great chance to just be creative and have fun with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this brings us to the end of the Module 4 live session, Cerise. And our live session question from this week is what is 3 central concepts in African ethics? And I'm sure you'll be able to answer that based on what we discussed in our presentation. We probably talked about 6 different African ethical values, but you only need to list 3 central concepts in African ethics. Any
And
questions? Hmm.
yes. So we're just listing them. We're not explaining them.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Just have to list the words.
Okay.
All right. Is there anything else you would like to discuss, Charisse?
No. I really love this class, and I um I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What is it that so I'd never heard of an ethics class before this class, and I enjoy it so much. So I'm wondering if someone wanted to get more